Emily Thompson's finger hovered over the intercom button for exactly 3 seconds before she pressed it. Send them up. She'd been expecting this meeting for 18 months. Her assistant's voice crackled back. Both of them? Both of them. She turned from the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office on the 42nd floor, the Chicago skyline stretching behind her like a kingdom she'd built brick by brick. The mahogany desk, the one she'd purchased at auction from a dissolved estate, sat between her and the door. She'd chosen it specifically for moments like this, wide enough to create distance, solid enough to anchor her. Emily moved to the credenza and poured herself water from a crystal decanter, watching her reflection in the window's glass. 34 years old, charcoal suit tailored to perfection. Hair pulled back in a way that said she meant business. Nothing like the 22-year-old girl who'd been escorted out of a wedding reception with her cardboard box of belongings. 12 years. She'd waited 12 years for this. The elevator chimed down the hall. Footsteps approached, one set clicking confidently, the other slower, more hesitant. Emily didn't sit. She stood with her back to the door, glass in hand, and waited. The knock was soft, almost apologetic. Come in. The door opened. In the window's reflection, Emily watched them enter. James Carter first. His 6-foot frame diminished somehow, shoulders curved inward. Silver had crept into his temples since she'd last seen him at his stepbrother's funeral 3 years ago. He'd pretended to not know her then, walking past her in the church parking lot like she was a stranger. Behind him, Olivia Carter now, moved with the careful steps of someone navigating unfamiliar territory. Her mother wore a cream-colored Chanel suit that probably cost more than Emily's first car. The blonde highlights in her hair were fresh. The diamond on her finger caught the afternoon light. Emily let the silence stretch. 5 seconds. 10. She took a slow sip of water. Emily, her mother's voice cracked on the second syllable. Thank you for seeing us. Mrs. Carter? Emily turned, her expression neutral. She didn't look at her mother. She looked at James. Mr. Carter, please sit. They remained standing. I'd rather... James started. I insist. Emily gestured to the 2 chairs positioned in front of her desk. They were deliberately uncomfortable. She'd selected them for vendors who tried to waste her time. You came to my office. We'll do this professionally. She walked behind her desk and sat, lacing her fingers on the polished surface. The file folder sat to her right. She'd prepared it last night, reviewing every document until 3 a.m. But she didn't open it. Not yet. James lowered himself into the chair. Olivia followed, perching on the edge like she might flee at any moment. Your assistant said you're very busy, Olivia began, her voice taking on that familiar pleading tone. We won't take much of your time. I have 15 minutes. Emily glanced at the antique clock on her shelf, another auction purchase. 14 now. James leaned forward, attempting his boardroom posture. I'll be direct. We need your signature on a transfer of shares, your grandfather's estate. My grandfather, Emily interrupted quietly, whom you prevented from seeing me for the last 8 years of his life. The color drained from James's face. That's not... We never... You had me removed from the visitor list at his care facility. Emily's voice remained level, professional. I have the documentation, signed by you, Mr. Carter, as his power of attorney. Olivia's hand moved to her throat, fingers finding her pearl necklace. Emily, please. That was complicated. Your grandfather was confused, and James was trying to... 13 minutes. Emily tapped the folder, but didn't open it. State your business. James's jaw tightened. For a moment, Emily saw the man who'd stood in their old living room 12 years ago, his voice booming, "She's not real family, Olivia. My children are real family. She needs to understand the difference." Carter Industries is facing a hostile takeover. Your grandfather left you shares, 20%, in a trust that dissolved when you turned 33. We need you to transfer them to the family holdings to protect the company he built. The company you inherited when he died. Emily finally opened the folder, though she knew every word by heart. The company he told you to include me in. I found the letters, Mr. Carter. The ones he wrote you from the care facility. Olivia made a small sound, almost a gasp. He asked you, repeatedly, to bring me to visit. He asked you to honor the provision in his will that included me. Emily looked up, meeting James's eyes for the first time. You told him I'd moved away, that I didn't want contact. The company was falling apart, James said, his voice rising. I had to make hard decisions. Your grandfather wasn't thinking clearly. 10 minutes. Emily, please. Olivia reached across the desk. You have to understand. When I married James, his children needed stability. The business needed stability. You were so angry back then, and I was angry because you told me I wasn't welcome at your wedding unless I sat in the back, because James's daughter didn't want the helps child in the family photos. Emily's voice could have cut glass. The words hung in the air like smoke. Olivia's hand retreated. I never said that. You didn't stop her from saying it. Emily stood, closing the folder with a soft snap that sounded like a gavel. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my office, you're going to have your attorney send me the formal request, and I'm going to review it with my legal team. She walked to the door and opened it. You have 7 minutes to reach the elevator. James rose, his face flushed. You spiteful little... 6 minutes, Mr. Carter. Olivia stood, clutching her purse. Emily, sweetheart, we're family. Emily looked at her mother for the first time since they'd entered. Really looked at her. The woman who'd chosen a wealthy man over her own daughter, who'd stood silent while Emily's belongings were packed, who sent a check for her 25th birthday with no card, no note, just a signature on the memo line. Trust disbursement. No, Mrs. Carter. We're not, Emily said softly. She watched them leave, her mother's shoulders shaking, James's hand gripping her elbow too tightly. The elevator doors closed. Emily returned to her desk and opened the folder again. Inside were documents her grandfather's attorney had given her 6 months earlier. Documents James didn't know existed. Legal papers that made her not just a 20% shareholder, but the holder of preferred shares with triple voting rights. She owned 60% of the company's voting power. Her phone buzzed. A text from William Hughes, her attorney and oldest friend. How did it go? Emily typed back. They have no idea what they signed. She set the phone down and looked out at the Chicago skyline, at the city she'd conquered alone. The real meeting would come later, when they realized she didn't just hold the power to save Carter Industries. She held the power to destroy it. The rain started at sunset, turning Michigan Avenue into a river of brake lights and blurred reflections. Emily stood at her apartment window, watching the storm roll in from the lake. Her phone had been silent for 3 days since her mother and stepfather left her office. 3 days of waiting for the other shoe to drop. She'd bought this place 2 years ago, a converted loft in River North with exposed brick and original timber beams. The real estate agent had called it industrial chic. Emily called it proof. Proof that she'd built something that mattered before she ever knew about the shares, before she knew her grandfather had been planning her vindication. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. William's name lit up the screen. "Tell me," she said, answering on the second ring. They lawyered up. Big firm, Donovan and Price. William's voice carried the satisfaction of someone who'd anticipated every move. They're claiming undue influence, saying your grandfather wasn't of sound mind when he restructured the shares. Emily moved to her home office, really just a desk in the corner where the light was best. The wall above it held a single framed photograph, her grandfather in his workshop, sawdust on his flannel shirt, holding up a birdhouse he'd made. She was 7 in the photo, sitting on his workbench, laughing. She'd found it in a box of his things the estate attorney gave her. Her mother had thrown away all the others. They won't win. The medical records are clear. He had capacity, Emily said. They're desperate. Carter Industries stock dropped another 12 points today. The takeover bid increased. William paused. Emily, they're going to come at you hard. Are you ready for this? She touched the photograph's frame. I've been ready for 12 years. That's not what I asked. Before she could respond, her building's intercom buzzed. Emily frowned at the clock. 8:30 on a Thursday night. Someone's here, she said. Don't answer it. But Emily was already moving to the intercom panel. The security camera showed a figure in a dark raincoat, hood up, water streaming off the fabric. Can I help you? Emily asked through the speaker. The figure looked up. Even with the hood obscuring most of her face, Emily recognized her mother's eyes. It's me, Olivia said. Please, I need to talk to you. Alone. William's voice crackled through the phone. Emily, don't! I'll call you back. She ended the call and stared at the intercom. Every instinct screamed to leave her mother standing in the rain. But something in Olivia's voice, a rawness Emily hadn't heard in years, made her press the buzzer. 3rd floor. Emily unlocked her apartment door and left it slightly ajar, then walked back to the kitchen. She wasn't going to greet her mother like a welcome guest. If Olivia wanted to talk, she could let herself in. The elevator chimed. Footsteps in the hallway. The door creaked open. Emily? In here. Olivia appeared in the kitchen doorway, dripping rain onto the hardwood floors Emily had just refinished. Without the expensive suit, without the styled hair and perfect makeup, she looked smaller, older. The cream raincoat was soaked through. You're making a mess, Emily said, not moving from where she leaned against the counter. Olivia looked down at the puddle forming at her feet. I'm sorry, I should have... There are towels in the bathroom. 1st door on your left. Her mother disappeared, and Emily heard the bathroom door close, the sound of running water. She used the time to pour herself a glass of wine. She didn't pour one for Olivia. When her mother returned, she dried her face and hair, but the coat was still wet. She folded the towel precisely, the way she'd always folded laundry. Corners perfect, edges aligned. Some habits didn't change. James doesn't know I'm here, Olivia said, standing awkwardly in the kitchen like a visitor in a stranger's home. I assumed. He thinks I'm at my book club. Emily took a sip of wine. You hate book clubs. I know. Olivia's fingers twisted the towel. He wanted me to join. Said it would be good for my image. The wives of his business partners go. The kitchen fell silent, except for the rain against the windows. Emily waited. She'd learned patience the hard way, working 3 jobs to put herself through Northwestern, sitting through meetings with investors who thought she was too young, too female, too unconnected. She could wait all night if she had to. You look like him, Olivia said finally, her voice breaking. Your grandfather. You have his eyes, his stubbornness. Don't! I see it every time I look at you, and Olivia's hand went to her mouth. I can't do this. I can't keep pretending. Then stop. Emily set down her wine glass with deliberate care. Stop pretending. Stop showing up at my office with your husband. Stop sending lawyers. Just stop. He died recently. Did you know that? The words hit like a slap. Emily's fingers tightened on the counter. Not James, I guess? No. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. Your grandfather, when he restructured those shares, when he made you the majority holder, he knew. He knew James had been lying to him about you. Emily's breath caught. What? Olivia sank into one of the kitchen chairs without being invited. The hospice nurse. She showed him. James had been intercepting your letters, your calls. You tried to visit him, didn't you? At Meadowbrook Care? Emily's voice came out rough. 17 times. I drove there 17 times over 3 years. They told me I wasn't on the approved list, that he'd requested no contact. Olivia nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. The nurse, her name was Patricia, she found your letters in James's office when she was dropping off medication. Dozens of them, unopened. She brought them to your grandfather. The kitchen tilted. Emily gripped the counter harder. He read them all, Olivia continued. Every single one. The one about your college graduation, the one about your first job, the one where you told him about the consulting firm you were starting. She wiped her face with the towel. He called his attorney the next day, changed everything, made sure you'd have control. The shares were held in trust until you turned 33. He said you'd need time to build your own life first, before you had to deal with his. You knew. Emily's voice was dangerously quiet. You knew James was doing this, and you let him. I found out after. Olivia stood, reaching out. Emily, I swear I found out after your grandfather died. James told me it was to protect the family, to protect the business, to protect himself. Emily stepped back, away from her mother's outstretched hand. He wanted full control of Carter Industries. I was the only thing in his way, the only real family connection Grandpa had left. Yes, the word came out as a whisper. And you stayed with him, even after you knew. Olivia's hand dropped. I had nothing else. When I married James, I gave up my job, my independence. His lawyers made me sign a prenuptial agreement. If I leave him, I get nothing. I'm 56 years old with a 15-year gap in my resume and... Stop! Emily's voice cracked like a whip. Stop making excuses. You had me. You always had me. I would have helped you. I would have... She turned away, her chest tight. I spent my entire adult life trying to prove I was worth something, worth your love. And all this time, you chose his money over me. I chose security. You chose wrong. The rain hammered against the windows. In the living room, the photograph of her grandfather seemed to watch them both. Olivia's voice went small. He left you a letter too, your grandfather. Patricia gave it to me before she quit. She said... She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an envelope, worn and creased like it had been carried for months. She said, I should give it to you when the time was right. Emily stared at the envelope, her grandfather's handwriting on the front. For Emily, when she's ready to choose. I don't want it. Please, Olivia set it on the kitchen counter. Just read it, and then decide what you're going to do with the shares. What I'm going to do? Emily laughed, the sound bitter. You came here to manipulate me. That's what this is. The tears, the confession, the letter. It's all designed to make me feel sorry for you, to make me save James's company. No, Olivia shook her head. I came to tell you the truth. What you do with it is your choice. But Emily, you need to know, Carter Industries isn't just James's legacy. It's your grandfather's. It's the company he built from nothing. He wanted you to have it because he trusted you to protect what he created. He wanted me to have it because his son-in-law is a lying bastard who stole 12 years of my life. Yes, Olivia said softly. That too. She moved toward the door, then paused. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't even deserve it. But your grandfather believed you were better than all of us. Better than me. Better than James. Better than the whole toxic mess we made. She looked back, her face ravaged by tears. Don't prove him wrong by destroying something out of spite. Get out. Olivia left the towel folded on the counter and walked to the door. She paused in the doorway. I loved him too, you know. Your grandfather. He was the best thing about our family. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to honor that. Then she was gone, and Emily was alone with the rain and the letter and the weight of a choice she never wanted to make. She stood frozen for a long moment before reaching for the envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, her grandfather's shaky handwriting covered a single page. Dear Emily, if you're reading this, then you know what I've done. Patricia tells me you've been trying to visit, that James lied. I should have known, should have questioned, but I was tired and I trusted the wrong person. I'm leaving you the company not because I want you to save it. I'm leaving it to you because you understand something James never did. Some things are worth more than money. Carter Industries will either die or survive based on what it deserves. You'll know which. But Emily, whatever you decide about the company, don't let bitterness poison what's left of your life. I made that mistake with your grandmother after she passed. Spent years angry at death itself. Wasted time I could have spent with you. Be better than me. Be better than all of us. Choose the life you want, not the revenge you think you deserve. All my love, Grandpa. Emily read it 3 times, her tears blurring the ink. Then she picked up her phone and dialed William. I need you to set up a meeting, she said when he answered. With James, with his board, with everyone. What are you going to do? Emily looked at the photograph on her wall, at her 7-year-old self laughing in her grandfather's workshop. Something my grandfather would understand, she said. But even as she spoke the words, she wasn't sure if that meant mercy or justice, or if there was any difference left between the two. The Carter Industries boardroom occupied the entire 20th floor of a glass tower in the Loop. Emily had never been inside it before. Her grandfather had built the company in a warehouse on the south side, but James had moved headquarters 8 years ago, right after the old man went into care. Emily arrived 15 minutes early. Power move. She wore navy blue today, severe and uncompromising. Her heels clicked against marble as she crossed the lobby, her leather portfolio tucked under one arm. William walked beside her, his expression unreadable. Last chance to reconsider, he murmured as they entered the elevator. I'm not reconsidering. Emily! I know what I'm doing. But her hands were shaking. She clasped them together as the elevator climbed, watching the floor numbers tick upward. 15, 16, 17. The doors opened on 20, and James's executive assistant, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s, greeted them with professional coolness. Miss Thompson, Mr. Hughes, they're waiting. The boardroom stretched before them like a battlefield. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Chicago River. A table of polished walnut dominated the space, surrounded by leather chairs. 8 people sat waiting. James at the head, his legal team flanking him, and 4 board members arranged like chess pieces. Olivia sat in the corner, apart from the table. Their eyes met for a half second before Emily looked away. Emily. James stood, extending his hand across the table. Thank you for coming. She didn't take his hand. She walked to the opposite end of the table and set down her portfolio. William took the seat to her right. Let's begin, Emily said. James remained standing, trying to control the room. I think we can all agree we're here for the same purpose, to protect Carter Industries and honor your grandfather's legacy. My grandfather's legacy? Emily opened her portfolio, removing a single document. Let's talk about that. She slid it across the table. James picked it up, his face darkening as he read. What is this? A forensic audit of Carter Industries, commissioned by me 18 months ago when I discovered the extent of my shareholding. Emily's voice was steady, each word precisely placed. It makes for interesting reading. One of the board members, Gerald Mitchum, according to the nameplate, leaned forward. Ms. Thompson, this meeting was called to discuss the transfer of shares, not to... Emily interrupted. Section 4, page 12. The East River Development Deal. Carter Industries paid $8 million over market value for land that was contaminated. Who brokered that sale, Mr. Carter? James's jaw clenched. That was vetted by our acquisitions team. Your acquisitions team, which included your son-in-law, who received a $200,000 consulting fee from the seller. Emily looked at the board members. Did any of you approve that conflict of interest? Silence. Page 23, Emily continued. The Melbourne contract. Carter Industries underbid by 30%, then claimed cost overruns that tripled the client's expense. The overruns went to subcontractors, 3 of which are shell companies traced back to accounts controlled by your family trust. That's a lie. James's voice rose. Those contracts were legitimate. I have bank records. Emily removed another document, then another, spreading them across the table like cards. I have emails. I have testimony from 2 former employees who were paid severance in exchange for non-disclosure agreements, which, incidentally, don't hold up when fraud is involved. She looked up. The board members were reading now, passing documents between them. One of them, a silver-haired woman named Patricia Yang, removed her glasses. James, tell me this isn't true, she said quietly. It's taken out of context. Emily is... He turned on her, his face flushed. You vindictive little bitch. This is about revenge. You can't handle that your mother chose me, that your grandfather's real family... Emily's voice cut through his. My grandfather knew. He knew exactly what you were doing. Why do you think he changed his will? James froze. Emily stood, gripping the edge of the table. He restructured the shares because he discovered you were stealing from the company he built, inflating contracts, creating fake vendors, paying yourself through shell companies while telling the board the company was struggling. You have no proof. I have his notes. Emily removed a leather journal from her portfolio, her grandfather's journal, given to her by Patricia, the hospice nurse, through Olivia. He documented everything, every conversation with his attorney, every suspicion, every piece of evidence he gathered before he became too sick to act on it himself. She opened the journal to a marked page and read aloud. James thinks I don't understand the quarterly reports. He simplified them, he says, made them easier for my old mind. But I built this company. I know what concrete costs. I know what labor runs. The numbers don't lie, but my son-in-law does. Olivia made a sound from her corner, a sob, quickly stifled. Emily closed the journal. He left me the shares because he knew I'd have to make a choice. Burn it all down, expose the fraud, destroy the company, watch it get torn apart in legal battles. Or, she paused, looking at each board member in turn. Or do what he would have done. Fix it. Fix it, James laughed, the sound brittle. You're a management consultant who lucked into a trust fund. You don't know the first thing about running a construction company. You're right. I don't. Emily sat back down, her voice calm now, steady. But I know how to hire people who do. I know how to read a balance sheet. And I know the difference between profit and theft. She removed one final document from her portfolio. This is my proposal. James Carter resigns as CEO effective immediately. The board will appoint an interim executive while I conduct a full restructuring. Every contract will be reviewed, every vendor will be vetted, every shell company will be dissolved, and the funds returned to Carter Industries. You can't, James started. I own 60% of the voting shares. I absolutely can. She looked at Olivia. Your prenuptial agreement entitles you to nothing if you divorce. But as James' wife, you own the house, the cars, the country club membership, everything he bought with stolen money. Olivia stood, her hands trembling. Emily, what are you saying? I'm saying you have a choice, too. Emily's voice softened just slightly. You can leave him, testify to what you know, help me rebuild what he destroyed. In exchange, I'll make sure you're taken care of. A position at Carter Industries, a real job, not a trophy wife role. Independence. Olivia, James turned to his wife, his voice sharp. Don't listen to her. She's trying to divide us. Or, Emily continued, ignoring him, you can stay with him. Stand by him while he's investigated. Watch everything collapse. And when the legal bills drain every account, when the house gets seized and the lawyers take what's left, you'll have exactly what your prenup guarantees. Nothing. Olivia looked between them, her husband of 12 years, and the daughter she'd abandoned. Emily saw the calculation in her mother's eyes, the same calculation she'd made at that wedding reception. This time, the math was different. I'm sorry, James, Olivia whispered. Then she walked across the room and stood behind Emily's chair. James's face went white, then red, then purple. You ungrateful! I gave you everything, a life, status, respect, and you're going to throw it away for her? No, Emily said, her voice stronger now. I'm going to stop throwing her away for you. Emily looked at the board members. I need a vote. All in favor of accepting James Carter's immediate resignation. One by one, hands rose. All of them. James stood alone at the head of the table, the king dethroned in his own castle. This isn't over, he said. Yes, Emily replied. It is. Security arrived 5 minutes later to escort him from the building. Emily watched him go, her grandfather's journal still open in front of her. She'd chosen justice over revenge. She just wasn't sure it felt any different. 6 months later, Emily stood in her grandfather's old workshop. The building sat on the south side, exactly where it had always been, a squat brick structure with windows that rattled in the wind and a parking lot full of potholes. James had wanted to sell it, turn it into condos or a boutique hotel. The board had voted to keep it as warehouse space, unused and forgotten. Emily had other plans. The afternoon light slanted through dusty windows, illuminating sawdust that still lingered in the corners. Her grandfather's workbench remained against the far wall, scarred and stained from decades of use. Someone had covered it with a tarp, but Emily had pulled it away this morning. She ran her hand along the wood, feeling the grooves and divots. Somewhere in this bench was the mark from when she'd hammered her first nail at age 6. Crooked and enthusiastic, her grandfather's huge hand steadying hers. I thought I'd find you here. Emily turned. Olivia stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee from the shop down the street. She'd cut her hair shorter, stopped coloring it. The gray made her look softer somehow, more real. The contractors start on Monday, Emily said, taking the offered coffee. 3 months of renovations, then we open. Carter Industries Community Training Center. Olivia read the architectural plans spread across a folding table. Teaching construction skills to at-risk youth? Your grandfather would love this. I know. They stood in silence, sipping coffee. Their relationship over the past 6 months had been careful, professional. Olivia worked in Carter Industries' Community Outreach Division, a department Emily had created specifically for her. They had lunch sometimes, talked about work, avoided the deeper wounds that still hadn't fully healed. James's lawyer called me again, Olivia said quietly. 3rd time this week. What does he want? Money for his legal defense. He thinks I owe him. Olivia's laugh was bitter. 12 years of marriage, and he still doesn't understand that I never had any money. It was always his. I was just allowed to spend it. Emily set down her coffee. You don't owe him anything. I know. Olivia touched the workbench, the same way Emily had. But some nights, I wake up and wonder if I made the right choice. If I should have stayed quiet, kept the comfortable lie. Do you regret it? Leaving him? No. Olivia's fingers traced a heart someone had carved into the wood decades ago. Waiting so long to leave him? Every day. The wind rattled the windows. Outside, Chicago moved on. Cars passing, people walking, the city breathing its indifferent rhythm. I got a letter from the prosecutor, Emily said. James took a plea deal. 3 years for fraud. Maybe less with good behavior. I know. They called me too. Olivia's voice was flat. His children won't speak to me. At the country club, the other wives cross the street when they see me coming. I'm sorry. Don't be. I earned that. But Emily, I need you to know something. I didn't testify against him for the job. Or the salary. Or because you asked me to. Then why? Because I watched you in that boardroom And I saw what I could have been. If I'd been braver. If I'd chosen differently. If I'd protected my daughter instead of protecting my comfort. Emily's chest tightened. Mom, let me finish. Olivia held up a hand. I can't undo the past 12 years. I can't give you back the time I stole. But I can stop stealing from you now. Stop letting men tell me who matters and who doesn't. Stop choosing security over love. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need you to know that I see you. Finally. Really see you. And you're extraordinary. Emily's own tears came then, hot and unexpected. I wanted to destroy him. When I walked into that boardroom, I had 2 presentations ready. One to save the company, one to burn it all down and salt the earth. What changed? Grandpa's letter. Emily pulled it from her pocket. She'd carried it every day since her mother gave it to her. The paper was soft from constant folding and unfolding. He told me not to let bitterness poison my life, to choose the life I wanted, not the revenge I deserved. Which did you choose? Emily looked around the workshop. I don't know yet. Some days this feels like healing. Other days it feels like I let him off easy. He stole from Grandpa, lied to you, treated me like garbage, and he gets 3 years in a minimum security facility while I work 80-hour weeks fixing his mess. Is that what this is? Olivia gestured at the plans. Fixing his mess? No, Emily's voice was firm. This is honoring Grandpa's legacy. There's a difference. Olivia smiled. There is. They stood together in the dusty light, mother and daughter still finding their way back to each other. The path wasn't clear. Maybe it never would be. But they were walking it together now, and that was something. Emily's phone buzzed. A text from William. Board meeting in an hour. The quarterly numbers are strong, really strong. She typed back, on my way. I have to go, Emily said, gathering the architectural plans. I know. Change the world, save the company. All in a day's work. Olivia's tone was teasing, but her pride was genuine. Emily paused at the door. Mom, do you want to have dinner this week? Not work, just dinner. Olivia's breath caught. I'd like that. Thursday? Thursday's perfect. Emily walked to her car, the workshop key heavy in her pocket. She'd made copies, one for the contractors, one for the program director they'd hired, one for the safe in her office, and one she'd keep, always. Because some spaces were sacred, some legacies were worth protecting, and some choices, the hardest ones, led not to revenge or forgiveness, but to something more complicated and more real, a life built on her own terms. As Emily drove back toward downtown, the city spreading out before her like a promise, she thought about her grandfather's final words. Be better than me. Be better than all of us. She wasn't sure if she'd succeeded. The anger still lived inside her, alongside the hope. The hurt remained even as the healing started. But she was trying. And maybe, she thought, as the skyline rose to meet her, that was the whole point. Maybe trying was the whole point. In her rearview mirror, the south side faded. The workshop grew smaller. But it didn't disappear. It never would. Some foundations were built to last.